Thanks everyone for joining in. We'll start. Just some housekeeping. The webinar would be for about 30 minutes, and we'll be opening up for questions after that. You can drop in your questions in the chat window at any point you have. With that, let me get started. Let me introduce myself. I am Vivek Gopalan. I'm the VP of Product at Indusface. And today we are going to talk about the never-ending problem of zero false positives in WAF and the utopian dream of how we can avoid it, right? So that's what we are going to cover today. We will be touching a broad range of topics, starting from what is false positives, why is it such a big problem, how is industry tackling it, why is it such a big problem in the WAF industry, and then how we are going about solving these problems. That's pretty much what we'll be covering as part of today's webinar. With that, let's get started. Before we go into the crux of today's webinar, I just want to give you a quick introduction about Indusface. Indusface is a cybersecurity startup. We are in the business of protecting web applications and APIs. We have customers from all over the world. We have over 5,000 plus customers. Some of the prominent logos whom we protect are shown in the screen. The another thing that we are proud about is that we have been nominated as the customer choice in the Gartner's Web Application and API Protection Report. So the WAAP report, where customers who have used our product provide ratings, and across all the vendors, the leaders are chosen. So we have been the customer's choice for 2 years running, and we have been the only vendor who has got 100% recommendation rating in 3 consecutive years. Something that we are proud about. If you're interested to learn more, you could download the reports. It's also available in our website. With that, let me get started and talk about the problem, right? So let me paint a picture on how a WAF deployment story happens in the present world. So a customer would look to procure a WAF. He might look to procure a WAF for various reasons, starting from compliance, or because he is growing, his business is growing, and now he needs to ensure that the data that his customers are sharing are protected, and or for general security and brand management, right? So they could decide to procure WAF for any of these reasons. So they'll go and look and do a validation of various WAFs, and then they'll procure the WAF that meets their budget and their need. Once the WAF is deployed, the WAF would be put in a block mode. All the WAF vendors provide out-of-box rules in these WAFs, so they recommend that you put it in block mode. So you put it in a block mode and hope the application works. But one fine day, you start getting issues from your users. There might be issues like they are not able to access certain pages or certain features or the likes. And when you go about and investigate what is happening, you realize that the WAF is blocking certain requests, which it should not be, which is generally is what is called as false positive. So false positive is essentially WAF is treating some request which is legitimate in nature as malicious, and it ends up blocking it, right? So now what happens as false positive grows? There is a significant risk to your business. It could lead to revenue loss. It could lead to brand issues, user dissatisfaction, the likes. And the security team generally are getting questions around the decision of deploying WAF and managing the WAF. So then the security team takes knee-jerk reaction. They go and try to fine-tune the WAF. In certain cases, they will open up the WAF to an extent that it is no more protecting your applications. And in the worst case scenario, they will end up putting the WAF in log mode. So what that means is that you have procured a solution to protect your applications, but at the end of the day, the solution is not doing its job. And there could be a case of attackers getting through, and then one fine day you might get a call call of ransomware, right? So this is I'm just painting the picture of what happens, and this is a typical scenario that you see in the industry when it comes to WAF projects and WAF deployments. This might be something that you have also seen in your case, or you might be familiar about such cases in the past. So one example that I have, just to again paint the picture on how this is, right? So one of our customers who came to us, but before coming to us, they had another WAF, which was and it was a e-commerce site. So they had deployed their WAF, and all were good. But what they started seeing was that the checkouts that was happening were dropping once they had deployed the WAF. On further investigation, what they realized was that some certain requests on the checkout pages were getting blocked, and on further investigation, the reason was identified that certain item codes in the baskets had some special characters. So because of those reasons, WAF was treating it as malicious requests, and it was blocking them, which is natural. Every WAF looks for patterns and tries to determine whether it is malicious or not, and then they block it. So what was happening here in this case was that the WAF was affecting the business and affecting the revenue. So obviously the security team was work questioned, and they ended up whitelisting the entire URL, the checkout URL, so that there is no issues around the checkout pages. This is good from the business perspective because that was unlocked, but that is a serious concern from the security perspective, which they realized later on, where somebody were able to attack these checkout URLs, causing some inventory changes and serious loss. And that is when they started looking for different solution and came to us. But this is a typical scenario that you can see in a real life, right? Where because of the WAF projects, because of the security projects that the company is taking, it might end up causing real life business issues, leading to unhappy users. And this is the biggest problem of WAF, and the biggest problem WAF has is the false positives. So before going further, we just wanted to quickly ask you, I mean, how is WAF deployed in your environment? We'll be starting a poll soon. So the poll would be started now. So we'll give you about 20 seconds to answer, and then we'll close the polls. So we just want to know whether how the WAF is deployed, and even if you don't have any idea, then it's okay. You can just say that. Okay, we'll just close the polls now. Can you share the result? Okay, I'm not able to see the results. Can somebody read it out?
Yeah, 28% in log mode.
Okay.
44% in block mode, and 28% again in.
Okay, I saw
no
it.
idea. Yeah.
Okay, now I got it. So about 28% in log mode, 44. That's good. I mean, about 44% of people have it in block mode, and a few have no idea. This is kind of what we also see, right? Many leave the WAF in log mode. In some cases, they leave it in block mode, and then obviously there are challenges around false positive that they also see. Let's see how the industry looks about it, right? And before going further, let's talk about why this happens, right? Why does false positive actually happens? False positives can happen due to major reasons, right? One of the reasons is just the nature of WAF, right, and how these rules are written. And as with anything in security, it is always a trade-off. If you try to be 100% accurate and around protecting everything, then there is a chance of false positives was also there. So it's always a trade-off between false positives and false negatives, and with the WAF being WAF vendors providing default rule sets, they want to provide maximum coverage as possible. So they will end up providing more stricter rules, which would end up causing false positives. The other major reason would be around how the applications are and how the users are using with the application. The applications are generally complex. There could be misconfigurations of WAF or the applications, and there could be how it could also depend on how users behave with the application. But the primary reason, according to us, is that WAF is very complex, right? And it needs expertise to fine tune it and everything. And generally, the problem is that customers are asked to manage these WAF, which eventually leads to misconfiguration of these WAFs, leading to false positives. So this is what I mean. You guys have in the poll in this audience, we saw that about 28% of the audience say that WAF remains in log mode. The industry average is a bit more higher. About 50% of the WAFs remain in log mode throughout its lifetime, right? And the majority and the bigger problems around false positives are that because the many of these security alerts that comes needs investigation, and about 50% of the security alerts that the security teams look at are generally false positives, and 75% of the time are spent by the security experts chasing these false positives. All this eventually results in bad user experience and dissatisfied users, where applications are not accessible to the users at the right time, leading to downtimes and the likes. So what are the impacts of false positive, right? I think this is something that we have been covering, and that's a theme that we have been going across the slides, which is it leads to application downtime because the legitimate users are trying to access your application and they are not able to access it. Now it leads to significant loss of revenue, or it could be a brand issues to organization depending on the nature of it, and it kinds of bogs down the security team because they end up chasing their tails, looking at issues which is non-existent, wasting a lot of their time. All this leads to frustration, and that it leads to bad management of WAF. Security teams ends up misconfiguring WAF, opening up more than it should to avoid false positives, leading to security breaches. This is eventually the impact of false positive, right? You might say that, okay, false positives happen, only 2% could be false positive, but the eventual impact of false positive of these, because in a cutthroat environments where most of these business work around, even a 2% loss of business is not acceptable. So always the security teams are in a tussle to reduce these false positives, leading to security breaches. So before we go further, another poll question: among these challenges, what challenges do you face the most? Again, we'll give you another 10-15 seconds before we close the poll. We'll be closing the poll shortly. Okay, if you can share the results. Great. So yeah, good. Application downtime, as expected, is the leading challenges that you guys face. But eventually, that leads to other risks, right? And one of the silent killers in this is the increased security breaches that happens, because most of the times, to avoid false positives, the fine tuning of apps are done, and it is not done in the right manner, leading to security risks. Right? So let's go to the next important question, right? Yeah. So how does this play out in the real life scenario, right? Security teams are generally it's always a tussle between security team and application team. Security teams are pushing for securities. Application team is pushing for ease of use. This is a normal tussle which every one of you would be aware of, and it's a healthy tussle, right? It's always a healthy tussle, healthy thing to have. But what happens when false positive comes into picture is that this rope breaks, right? And essentially, the security teams are pushed into back foot because when there are false positives, they don't have a full, they don't have a strong hold on how to push back with the applications team. They eventually end up compromising, and then they take knee-jerk reactions, and in the worst case scenario, they put the WAF in log mode, right? This is something that I think many of you would be familiar with, and this is the problem that we at Indusface are trying to address. So before going into that, to address any problems, we should also try to understand why this problem first exists in the first place, right? So based on our understanding of the markets, this is why we think the false positive exists. Because most of these vendors do provide rules, but essentially they take a one-size-fits-all approach to WAF rules, right? They give you a comprehensive set of rule sets, and they say that, okay, these rule sets can be put into block mode for all the applications. But the reality is that every application is unique, right? So every application has its own nuances, how it has been built, what are the various components, what on various platforms it is built, and the others, right? So all these things leads to its own challenges. Certain request patterns which would have been malicious, which would not be malicious in certain cases, would be which would be malicious in certain cases, would not be malicious in a certain application in a real life scenario. These are the things that generally the industry fails to understand, and the solution when they are asked about this is that they give a UX to the customers, and then they say, okay, you should manage the WAF rules. But the problem with that is the customers are not the security experts. It is not easy to be on top of the changes that is happening in the security. Changes happen on a day-to-day basis. There are zero-day vulnerabilities that comes out on every day, and it is hard for any security team to be asked to be on top of it because that's not their expertise. They in general they'll be handling multiple solutions, and they'll be and their time is very limited, and asking them to become an expert and then be able to fine tune the WAF rules is something which is not ideal. So, but forced to do it, they end up doing what they could do best, resulting in misconfigured WAFs and then other things, and then it's eventually becomes a never-ending loop, right? So every day there are WAF. Okay, you get to onboard a site, WAF is put in block mode. Okay, there is complaints from the users. You fine-tune the WAF. Then okay, you feel that okay, everything is good now. Everything is right now. New rules are pushed by the WAF vendors. Again, the false positive cycle starts, and it is a never-ending loop. And you end up compromising and compromising and compromising. Eventually, the door is so wide open that anyone can walk through. That's essentially what is happening, and that is the biggest problem the industry is facing. Now, let us see how at Indusface we are solving this problem. So, in Indusface, what we take a unique approach, right? We take what we call it as risk-based approach to web application security. So what we do with this is when you onboard an application, we immediately start an DAST scanner. So this is inbuilt into our apptrana product, which is our web application API protection solution. So our DAST scanner starts and it tries to identify the vulnerabilities that are there in the application. And this is also complemented by a pen testing where manual pen testers would identify any business logic vulnerabilities. The reason why we do it is that because we need to identify what is the weakest link that is there in the also do. When a hacker is trying to exploit your application, what he would first do is he'll probe your application to see what is vulnerable, what is the vulnerability that is there in the application. Once he knows the vulnerabilities, he will exploit it. So to give an effective protection, we have to first identify what is the risk posture of your application, and that is what we do when we onboard the site first. With this, with the comprehensive DAST and pen testing, you'll get a comprehensive, detailed reports of the vulnerabilities. Parallelly, when a site is onboarded, we'll onboard the site in block mode, but we won't put all the rules in block mode from day zero. There will be a certain set of rules which we have categorized as advanced rules, which over the period of time across thousands of applications, we have observed that, okay, these rules will not cause false positives, right? So if these false positive triggers, this will generally trigger if the requests have malicious intent. So with that classification, we put these rules into block mode from day zero so that the protection starts. Meanwhile, the other set of rules, which are prone to false positives, which has to be tuned based on the application need, they are put in log mode. And as the request goes through the WAF for the next 14 days, our security team monitors these rules. They see how these rules are getting triggered and which cases they get triggered, around what patterns and other things. And based on this knowledge, they classify whether all these triggers are true positive or false positive. And wherever there is a false positive, they go and analyze why the false positive is happening. They look at the scanned reports also, which they have by this time. And then they also talk with customers if they need to understand more about the application. And eventually they fine tune these rules and they put it into block mode in 14 days. All this is done transparently without asking customers to do any heavy lifting here. The only touch point to the customers would be if our security team needs to understand your application better. Otherwise, everything is done by our security team. And within 15 days, we ensure that there are no false positives in your application. And not only that, right? These false positives, as we fine tune it and everything, we should not be opening any doors. So we also compare it with the security report around the scanning and everything that we have. And in the portal, we give you a clear visibility into what is protected and what is not protected. So if there are about 20 or 30 vulnerabilities that are there in your applications, we tell you that, okay, out of the 30 vulnerabilities, 20 of them are protected by core rule sets. 5 of them can be protected, or 5 or 8 of them can be protected by custom rules, and the remaining needs a fix in code. So you get a clear visibility onto the risk posture of your application behind WAF. And wherever custom rules can protect your application, customers can request for custom rules. And here also, our team will write the custom rules for you based on your application need, ensuring that there are no false positives in these rules. And eventually, we ensure that the comprehensive protection is given to your application, and you can reach the goal of 0 false positives with WAF in block mode. And our job does not stop here, right? As I already said, the security industries keep iterating, right? The security landscapes keeps changing. So every day there are new threats that evolves, and our security team keeps updating these rules. Every time our team updates these rules, it goes through the false positive monitoring cycle where the rules are put in log mode. We check whether the rules are behaving, how the rules are behaving. Is there any false positive triggers? And based on the application need, the false positives are removed before the rules are put in block mode. With this entire system put in place, we ensure that there are no false positives in WAF, and the applications can be protected in WAF in block mode without any concern. Out of all the applications behind apptrana, about 99% of them are in block mode, right? And they continue to remain in block mode, which is a testimony of the process working. So this is a typical mechanism of how we protect the web applications. It's a similar mechanism that we use to protect APIs also, but in the case of APIs, we could also create positive security policies and the likes because they are more structured. So as part of the onboarding process, we also ask customers about informations like the open API definitions or Swagger files and the Postman files. Using the Postman files, we would identify the vulnerabilities that are there in the APIs, and using the Swagger or the open API definitions, we would create a positive security policy. Similar to what happens with a web application, then we create a detailed report. This detailed report is with the automated and pen testing done. Automated and pen testing done, and parallelly we would have also started the application deployment, right? And then WAF would be put in block mode with certain rules, like a web application in block mode from day zero, and other rules in log mode, and we are continuously monitored for 14 days. And as with the previous example, we would move these rules to block mode after fine-tuning them for false positive. And with all this in the port application, comparing it with all the rules in place, right? Along with the positive security policy, the negative security policy, and the likes, we tell you how many of these vulnerabilities are patched, how many of these custom rules, and again, you can request for these custom rules, ensuring that we apply a comprehensive security involving both positive and negative security models for APIs, and ensuring there are no false positives in the application. I hope this gives you a clear picture on the approach that we take and why apptrana solution is able to guarantee zero false positives. And it is just not an utopian dream, right? We have thousands of applications behind us in block mode without any false positives. So just a quick example around how this thing works. Sorry, this is my, just going to log off and log in again. So this is, I'm just going to a portal. So this is a portal. We have about applications for 73 vulnerabilities. Some of them are protected by core rule sets, some of them are protected by custom rules. Few can be further protected by custom rules on request. If you go and look at the detect page, this is what I was talking about. You will get a clear visibility onto all your vulnerabilities, how the protection is working, how many of them are protected by core rule set, custom rules, and the likes, with also visibility on what needs fix in code. So customers can has to prioritize these vulnerabilities because it cannot be patched in WAF. And other rules, they can request for custom rules also directly from the portal. This gives you a comprehensive visibility on how the rules are behaving and what's the protection status. And currently this site is in advanced rules. As we move it to premium rules, the protection will further improve. Right. So that's kind of what is how the portal and the demonstration works. It's a quick demo. I'm not going to go into a complete demo on how this thing works, but I just wanted to give you a feel of how the risk posture and the visibility of the risk postures looks like. With that, I think we are coming to the end of this presentation. I'll just give you a quick demonstration, quick overview of what apptrana is, and then we'll open up for questions. So apptrana is our WAAP platform. It is a web application and API protection solution, and it is the and as I already mentioned, it is the customer choice, Gartner's customer choice in the WAAP report, right? So how does it work? It works on 4 main pillars, starting from risk detection. As I mentioned, we help you identify the risk posture of the application with a DAST and the pen testing, and with pen testing. And then there's the next pillar, which is the risk protection, which has the WAAP layer, web application API protection, where the positive and the negative security rules come into play. Along with it, we also provide DDoS mitigation, bot mitigation, and platform-specific rules. As a solution is the risk monitoring pillar, where we manage the false positives for you. We don't expect the customers to be the experts in the space, and we do the management for you, ensuring that the false positives are removed and the WAF can be put in block mode without any challenges. Last but not least, we do not want to compromise security for speed, so we have integrated CDN with our apptrana solution. So as customers sign up for apptrana, they also get integrated CDN, which will help them accelerate their application. With that, we come to the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and it was useful. I have one final poll question to you: whether did you like it, and would you be interested in a demo for apptrana WAF? Okay, I think we'll give you 2 more minutes. Yeah? Okay, we'll be closing the polls. Now we are open for questions. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. We'll be happy to answer.
We provide a trial.
Okay, there's a question that is, do we provide a trial? Yes, we provide a trial. It's a 14-day free trial with no commitments. So customer can go to our website, start a free trial, and we'll be there to help you throughout the journey. And it's a no commitment trial, as I said. Any other questions? Is there any other questions? If you can, I think you can unmute yourself and also ask if that's the case.
Where will your data center be?
Okay, our data centers are in, we have CDN POPs all over the world, and the WAF data centers are in 3 regions, India, US, and Europe. So we cover the predominant components. And we also have data centers in Dubai and Australia, right? So that's, we kind of cover, and as the business needs, if there are any business needs, we could set up data centers in other regions also.
Is it the SaaS model?
Yes. So another question is it a SaaS model? Yes, it's a completely SaaS solution. It's pay as you go. It's a subscription model, sorry, not a pay as you go. So it's a subscription model. You have monthly subscription and a yearly subscription model. So, and as I said, there's a free trial. You could sign up and use it at any point of time.
If there are multiple websites, can different rules be configured separately? Is additional license required?
Yes, our licensing model is an per application model. So for each application, a separate license is required. And yes, the rules can be configured based on the application's need. So it can be fine-tuned at each application level, and there's no restrictions around it.
Exactly. How is it licensed?
Yeah, okay. Someone has asked the question around licensing. So our licensing is around 2 parameters. One is the number of applications that you want to protect, and the traffic, right? These are the 2 parameters on which the licensing works. So you could choose for various plans, and there are per application cost for each of these licenses, and there is certain amount of free traffic that is bundled in with each of the licenses, and on extra traffic, there's an additional cost. So just keeping it simple, there are 2 parameters on which we do the licensing cost. One is number of applications, and another is traffic.
The traffic can be estimated in a free trial.
Yeah, and traffic that you have can be estimated in the free trial, and there's no additional cost for CDNs and the right. So CDN is bundled in for free. And we charge only for clean traffic. So if there are attacks and blocked, then we don't charge for that. It's only on clean traffic.
Will there be an agent which needs to be installed on the server?
Okay. Someone has asked, will there be an agent in the server? No. It's a complete, it's a SaaS solution. It's a reverse proxy. All you have to do is route the traffic through our SaaS infrastructure, and we'll do the rest. There's no installation needed at the application end or at the server end.
What is the minimum traffic?
What is the minimum traffic? I'm not clear. I think our base, minimum, our advanced plan comes with 30 GB free bandwidth, right? So per month, 30 GB per month is bundled into licensing. So that's the minimum that you get with our base license. Any other questions?
Like Cloudflare. The question was, is it like Cloudflare?
Yes, Cloudflare is our competitor. Yes, we provide solutions similar to Cloudflare. The biggest value proposition that we bring to the table when it comes to a Cloudflare is the managed offering that we provide, especially around removal of false positives and ensuring that the application remains in block mode from day zero. And the other proposition that we bring to the table is the risk-based approach. We are the only solution in the industry who takes a risk-based approach to web application and API protection.
Yeah, any major customer? We don't have the customer slide, right?
A major customer, yes.
India.
Major customers in India also. I mean, I'm hoping. Let me just go back to that slide. Sorry, and just leave it in that slide. That's a nice slide to be in. It's the first slide, but yeah, these are our customers. We have customers all over the world, as I said. In India, IndusInd Bank, HDFC, LTA, all these are our customers. Titan, Aditya Birla.
The next question was, like we route traffic in Cloudflare, same we will route in traffic to Indusface.
Yes, that is how it is. You have to route the traffic through us. I mean, that's how all the cloud WAF works. You have to route the traffic through cloudwaf, and the WAF works as a reverse proxy. They inspect the traffic and then they protect the origin. That's the same way we do it also.
At this point of time, you can unmute yourself or raise your hands and even talk.
Yes, I mean, we like it to be interactive, so you can unmute yourself and even ask further questions if you have any. I have another, I think it was booked for until another 5 minutes. So we have another 5 minutes. We can discuss anything around the security topics.
I think Ramachandran has a question.
Okay. I'll wait around for another 5 minutes. If there are any questions that pop up, I'll be happy to answer. But yeah. Okay, then I think it was a pleasure talking to all you guys, and it was an interactive Q&A session also. I hope the session was useful to you, and to people who have shown interest for demo, we will reach out to you, and please be in touch. Thank you.